potentially very good philosophical concern. I have no objection for BF&T to schedule something on the calendar to evaluate what we may do in the future, but to pull the contract would be, I don't think, an appropriate thing to do at this point in time. So I'd like to make a substitute motion with the understanding I have the intent of doing a follow-up motion relating to referring it to BFT for an evaluation. But I would move approval of CB3 at this time.
I'll second.
Councilmember Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I support Councilmember Kornell's reluctance to enter into this contract. Unfortunately, from a practical standpoint, as Ann and Councilman Kennedy have just pointed out, kind of faced with what the lawyers call a Hobson's choice, which in straightforward language means no choice at all. And I guess I'd ask Ian, if we don't do this renewal, in my mind, we wouldn't be shut down. We'd just be subject to maybe standard commercial charges for banking as opposed to the more favorable charges. I mean, we could continue doing business with Bank of America, we just wouldn't have a contract with them, right?
Again, that's a legal question at this point.
I mean, if we have deposits there and we have accounts there, they're not going to not do business with us.
There are several computer systems that are tied into that bank, and this agreement covers those systems and how they work. It's my understanding from talking to Muslim Gadwala. Without this agreement, the systems we have for payroll and so forth would not work. The systems we have for bank workers' comp would not work. The systems we have for bank retirement would not work. We would go to an all.
I mean, do you think Bank of America would shut that down? I think Bank of America would just charge us more for what we're doing today, that they're charging us a more favorable rate.
I have no idea.
Contract.
I have no idea. That's up to you.
I mean, I don't think Bank of America is going to say, stop running your $500 million through our banks.
Well,
I don't think they're going to say that.
well, the way they're tied into our computer systems is of concern, and whether
I
you know.
get that. No question it's a concern.
So yes, could we open an account and write checks, manual checks? Yes. And that.
Well, I mean, come on. I bank with Bank of America, and I bank online. They're not, you know. I mean, banking online with a bank is something everybody does. You don't need to have. I guess what I'd like to do is see if Councilman Kennedy would accept what I would consider to be a friendly amendment, and that would be, I would vote yes on the condition that this year we send out an RFP in anticipation of the next renewal, April of next year. And Bank of America can bid on it. But I don't want an automatic renewal to come up 2 weeks before the deadline. That's just not right. We have no choice.
I understand. You can direct administration.
So I will vote yes, I'd like to make a friendly amendment that we approve the renewal under the condition that the city sends out an RFP this year in anticipation of April 2014 renewal.
Councilmember Kennedy, is that an essential amendment?
My preference would be, for the first thing that BF&T would do would be evaluate the benefits, the detriments, the internal cost and time commitment of doing an RFP. I understand the theoretical thought process, but I think if we just jump to yes, and we're going to do an RFP on this issue, that we're not fully giving ourselves the opportunity to fully analyze the potential ramifications of doing the RFP, the good, the bad, and I in, with all due respect, I would decline that, with the understanding of when we, and our BF&T calendar is fairly current. We don't have anything on the agenda that does not have a return date. So I'd have to obviously talk with Ann and legal on scheduling that, but that would be my starting point as opposed to jumping right to an RFP.